Welcome to Women, Men, and Relationships. I'm Gigi Flazanes, your co-host for today. Mr. Doug Sandler is back. We did do an episode where he was actually in the airport at BWI in Baltimore, and I was here in California. So that's what today's episode is going to be on in terms of anxiety and people pleasing. So I hope you enjoyed today's show. Just a quick reminder that we are closing in on the next big step and the ticket sales for that. And if you are in a relationship or you want to be in a better relationship, or you're not in a relationship and you're really tired of manifesting the same person over and over again, I invite you to take the next big step and come to the next big step. Go to jjflazanes.com/next big step. The to-pay option will be over in 1 week from yesterday. So you have approximately 6 more days if you want to come to spread those payments out. I can help you find a roommate if you're single, or if you're coming by yourself. And if you're coming with a partner or you want a special deal, reach out to me. I'm happy to try to make that work. Some kind of deal for 2 people instead of 1. I definitely want to support couples coming and getting real work done together in an environment that will support you. So I hope you enjoyed today's show. We have lots of things to talk about in the relationship space.
Yep.
And I did a show today. I recorded a show that gets published tomorrow. And by the time this comes out, it'll be a week ago, on anxiety. And one of the things that I talked about on that podcast that only appeared, by the way, on Spirit, Purpose, and Energy and Fit to Love. It was the second show of the week. And I talked about the inherited emotional DNA of anxiety. And so I want to get your ideas, your feedback, your experience on anxiety in the family and anxiety in relationships. What comes to mind when I say that for you?
Well, what comes to mind for me, which is really interesting, because you don't understand where you have been until you've actually gone there, and then you look back and you say, "Holy shit, what just happened?" And then you discover these things. And I actually figured that I've had anxiety my entire life, but didn't realize it didn't really truly come to the surface until September of 2015. Now, I don't think there's any coincidence that it came 1 month after I got married. I don't think that was any coincidence. But at the time, I didn't realize what was going on. I suffered an anxiety, a panic attack, and it was truly disabling. This huge, empty feeling, a lonely feeling, completely dark, desperate moment on September 9th, 2015. And it literally 1 month and a couple of days after I got married. But I've discovered that anxiety is crippling. I mean, it really can be. I mean, give me a specific, like, where do you want me to go with it? Because there's a bunch of different directions I can go with anxiety. How I discovered it, where it manifested itself, how I resolved it. Where are you looking to go?
Make some comparisons to different times in relationship. Okay, so now you have 3 that you could talk about in terms of your levels of anxiety, or do you notice things differently now versus then? What if you were to compare anxiety levels or just
Sure.
patterns in relationship?
Okay. So as a kid, anxiety manifested itself in me in the way of stomach aches. And when I would wake up in the middle of the night, I would say to my mom, "I don't feel well." And then I would have these like shaking attacks where nothing would happen. I would just be afraid I was going to get sick. Or I was afraid that I was going to go down this deep, dark, spot of despair. I really didn't even know what I was afraid of. And my mom would just sit with me and calm me down and say, "It's going to be fine. Everything's going to be okay." And it would pass after probably about a half hour of uncontrollable shaking. I put that aside because I felt like I outgrew that. I didn't really know why I was having that. And then I got into my first marriage. And while my first marriage, I thought it was more of a marriage out of, I think that I married the first time because I felt like I was going through the marriage zone, and meaning that I was in my mid-20s, Jewish, the kind of family that I met my first wife. I thought it was the ideal family for me to marry into because they were family just like my family. They were very cohesive. Everything seemed good. I liked what they were all about. So I said, you know what? I'm marrying this woman because I think I'm in the right zone. I'm in the marrying zone. And then shortly after getting in the marrying zone, I discovered for the second time in my life anxiety again. Now, I thought it was work related. Now, and it may have been work related. I put a lot of pressure on myself because I was the sole income earner in the family. Put a lot of pressure on myself, and it manifested itself basically the same way. It was a I don't feel well, stomach ache. I can remember one occurrence. I was in the mortgage business, and I actually got in my suit, get ready to go to the office, and basically got back under the covers wearing my suit and just saying, I'm not doing this anymore. Now, I was saying it about my job, but I think a lot of it was the pressures of the marriage itself and the stress that I put on myself through that marriage. Um, then so that marriage after 20 years dissolved, and we decided to that it just wasn't working. So we decided to get divorced. The next relationship that I had the next serious relationship I had with my next wife, um, I didn't really understand. um, I thought, in this relationship, I married for love, and I fell in love with her, and I fell in love with her hard. And for me, it was really just trying to figure out what my purpose is, what my direction is, what, aside from loving her, what should I be doing? And I really put all this internal pressure on myself to really be everything that I thought she wanted me to be. And anxiety, again, manifested itself because I think I put a lot of undue stress on myself to be that person that maybe I just couldn't be. Maybe I could never live up to that expectation. Not that she was even asking me to live up to that expectation, but something that I thought that I should be living up to. And so that was, again, after 5 years of relationship, and then getting married, and then being married for just a couple months or just 1 month, the anxiety found itself back into my life. Um, since getting divorced, although it was a huge, not divorced, but separated, even though it was a huge heartbreak for me, and you hopefully can be my testimonial here. How have you felt my anxiety has been over the last several months since I've been separated?
I really want you to answer that before I say anything because I don't want to color what you would say.
Okay, all right. Well, I feel like I'm a new person. I feel like that pressure that, and I think that this just as a part of helping me through some of this process by coaching me through it and being my support mechanism, being an amazing support mechanism for me. I think the communication for me was essential. And when you took the communication out of my life, meaning I was communicating but not feeling I was being communicated with, anxiety was in my life. As soon as I was able to let go of that lack of communication and that trying to be somebody that I wasn't, uh, and I got out of that relationship, even though it wasn't my choice to get out of the relationship, the anxiety disappeared. So, and I'm not saying it's completely gone, but I'm saying that I am what I would think is 90% better, that I understand. I can talk things through when I'm dealing with you. I can communicate at a level where I don't feel like I have to prove myself to you, and you don't feel like, I'm hoping you don't feel like you need to say something to me just to appease me. It's more, let's just have open, honest communication about the things that are going on in my life. And there is a direct correlation between communication and stress and the anxiety that one can have in your life. So sorry about the background noise here. I'm still waiting on my delay. But I would say that anxiety has all but disappeared in my life. And the more you know that, the more that becomes the reality, because they're the words that you're saying to yourself that are truly the words that are your reality. And for me, the fact that I've had a lot less anxiety is creating a lot less anxiety, just like people that suffer from panic attacks and anxiety suffer from them, not because of the circumstances in their life, but because oftentimes it's the story you're telling yourself over and over and over again. So that's my story about anxiety, and I'm hoping that it was in line with where your expectation was, but that for me is what I have dealt with.
Do you notice anything about relationships that you still have and that you've had this whole time? Do you see them differently, experience them any differently now?
Well, I think that one of the things that I'm trying to really work my way into, which is really a challenge for me because I've led my entire life this way as an adult, maybe even as a kid, is I've always been a people pleaser. And I think that when you are a people pleaser, I think that you start to shape your life and your personality and the decisions you make around the decisions that you would think that the people that are in your life would want you to make. And what a horrible way to go through life through somebody else's filter. So I would say that, yeah, I think that you have to shape your own life. You have to make your own decisions. And that story that you tell yourself over and over again is so essential to getting you down the right path so anxiety does not take a grip on you.
So I was just curious if you notice sometimes when people shift, they start to see things differently. Things you didn't notice before about other people, other people's behaviors, react differently to them. It lands on you differently. I years ago when I dated my boss, I was just talking about this on a podcast with Dr. Jane, and now Dr. Jane knows about us, by the way. And so she and I had recorded for my show, and she was super happy and excited and feeling like totally left out. And I'm like, well, we're kind of not out. We're kind of a little bit out, but it's not really that, she's like, oh, I feel like I'm so behind. I'm like, don't worry, I'll catch you up. Here's some podcasts to listen to. But we were talking about sex, and we were talking about, I was talking about my first sexual experience. I had dated Jesse for almost 5 years, like 4.5 years, and with the plans of getting married. And we both were virgins, and I didn't lose my virginity until I was 21. And here I am with this boss. He was 8 years older than me. And he was Puerto Rican in New York. So he was a Norican, and he, it was like that whole exciting kind of older than thing going on. Right. And that was the pattern. And he's very experienced, super sexual. And that was really exciting. It wasn't good sexual experience. It was definitely good hormonal experience, but I can say without a shadow of a doubt, I never had an orgasm in the entire time I had sex with him, because I had no idea. I had no idea what to do or how to do, or I was just intimidated by how much he knew.
Yeah.
And so the whole time that I was with him, I felt a little bit of, I was trying to prove to my friends who didn't like him and thought, this isn't going to go anywhere. What are you doing? And I was doing the lesson I needed to learn. In fact, I probably could dig out 5 different journals during that time where I literally was crying on a regular basis saying, dear God, I know this is not it forever. I know he's not the one. So can I just learn the lesson and move on? Okay. I was 21 begging for the clarity that I needed to move on and not be pulled in the direction of him any longer. And it wasn't that it was abusive. It just wasn't satisfying.
Yeah.
And so there was always a part of me that felt, I don't know, like I was trying to prove myself. And at the time, there was a girl who worked with me at the restaurant downstairs. I lived in New York City on the corner of 75th and First Avenue. And for the longest time, the Blue Moon Mexican Cafe was there. And we both worked at the Blue Moon. Shout out to the Blue Moon, Carlos, Dave. And I don't know what they're doing now, but so I worked with Ella, and Ella was from Armenia. She actually was exiled, or she escaped from Armenia at the time. And she had this very man hatred, abuse men kind of thing. She was really young, and I'm sure it was a compensation, but she had this very sassy, almost at the time while I was sort of sleeping with my boss. He never committed to me. I was always the other woman or someone he wouldn't commit to. But, the lack of self-esteem, I guess, that I had, even though I didn't look at it that way, I looked at it as I was learning a lot of lessons, and I did. And I never needed to repeat them again, because it was 2.5 years of hell that paid off. But Ella at the time would be empowering. Like, her energy actually was fun for me. It made me feel empowered when she'd be all like, oh, we should go use these men, or blah, 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 or whatever she'd say. Right. And then what I noticed after the day came when he showed up and we were making out on the couch, and I literally the brick hit me in the head, and I was like, and he said something stupid. I'm like, leave. I'm like, I'm done. It just changed that quickly. And I was like, finally, okay, I am done with you. I am over you. I am done with this. And I was like, okay, phew. And then I'd hang out with Ella, and all of a sudden she agitated me. And all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, she's so negative. And I had to ask myself, did she change? She didn't change. I changed. The minute that I let go of him and that situation, and I kind of resumed back to whatever my normal natural vibration was at the time, all of a sudden her energy, which was empowering before, was now agitating me and frustrating me. So I set that up for you because, and it may be too soon for you to tell, what I would say about your anxiety is that I remember when I visited you, and and helped you pack your stuff. And, and even when I trained you and we were friends, that there was a level of anxiety, like you didn't sleep very much. You weren't sleeping. I didn't feel like you got good rest. And there was this level of sort of panic, not that you panicked all the time. We had a good time, but you weren't sleeping, and that concerned me. And then minus the first weekend here,
So why?
you couldn't
Let me ask you this
force
though.
a way to find
Why do you
out, and
think
you
that
weren't,
was the case? Like,
if
why
you,
would you think that was the
my
case?
client
I mean, it was the
now,
case,
and not
but
someone I was
what
dating, I
about
would,
the
and although I can
relationship
still do this with you now,
creates that? Is it
I
the
would
lack
have
of communication?
helped
Is
you
it the
use
stress
law
that
of
you put on
attraction and
yourself?
frequency
What is the
to
reason?
really
How do you think?
find your strength and find your confidence and your trust, no matter what was going on in your life. But that whole relationship triggered a deeper wound for you. And that wound was, I'm unsafe. I can be left. I've been abandoned. I don't feel secure. I need certain things to feel secure. And so back when you were having not the communication that you wanted, I think it triggered those wounds. It really agitated I don't know what's going on. Therefore, I don't feel safe. And something could happen at any moment. I have no idea. And what's going to come out of the blue, I have no idea. I can't prepare for it. So I think all of that is underneath what happens when you weren't feeling connected and clear and authentic in the communication. You weren't trusting is the bottom line. It
Now,
doesn't even matter
so
who it's with,
I
right?
guess that was maybe the case. I mean, it was certainly exacerbated and amplified towards the last 6 or 7 months of our marriage, but that probably describes the entire relationship. I hate to say it, but I think looking back, remember I said, hindsight is really an interesting thing. You can look back and say, oh shit, that's the reason why that happened in my marriage, or that's the reason I felt that way. But when you're in it, what about everybody that's in the women, men, and relationships community that really doesn't know what the reason is for? How do you do a self analysis to determine, are you being true to yourself? Are you, like, what symptoms do you have other than anxiety, and what analysis can you do to determine if you're in a relationship that isn't the right one for you?
Well, I think before we jumped to, is it right for me or not right for me? Because I'm a big fan of committing, right? My marriage didn't dissolve overnight. I wasn't left overnight. In fact, I was the one that had to pull the trigger eventually because he wasn't doing it and just prolonging it, but was out of it emotionally for a long time, and rebelling and running away. And there's only a certain amount of time where someone actually wants to keep chasing you for so long. If someone doesn't want to stay put and like figure it out, what else is somebody to do? But I don't think it's that, is this the right relationship for me? Those would have been questions to ask before you got married. But once you get married and you've made this commitment, how do you work with this commitment, and how do you go about that? And obviously, that I'm a big fan, and we're going to do at the workshop. The Imago therapy is the first place to start with,
Yeah.
about why did you attract this person? What are the wounds you needed to heal by choosing this person in the first place? Now, that's not going to satisfy the way you communicate right away, but it's a starting point to have conversations about behaviors and feelings and needs. And then, of course, the next step would be the feelings and needs list, because I don't believe, I know, but let's just be nice and say I believe. I could diagnose most people with being completely unconscious about their emotions when it comes to identifying them, where they live in your body, why are they there, what belief system creates that, what need is not being met that's causing this feeling. So working with the whole Marshall Rosenberg's nonviolent communication model, which I use in all the live events and in my work that I do with people, is another way to start to evaluate what your needs are. And now in this situation, you can't make or force anyone to communicate with you if they're not going to. And so for you guys, there was a bit of a disconnect. And I do believe that relationship was to get you to this point. So it had its purpose and it had its reasons for your growth and for you to identify things. But when it comes back to circling back to sort of the anxiety piece and you're in a relationship, what do? Well, you do some of the work I just mentioned, and you don't necessarily self-evaluate because you may not be able to see. You don't know what you don't know, and
Right.
you're in it. So you're like, your frequency is in it. That's why, you and I've talked about that. You've probably had anxiety your whole life, but until you had the anxiety attack, you're just used to it. Like, you didn't understand the level of anxiety that you've lived at because you've lived it. So to you, that's your normal, that's your set point. And until it tipped the scale and your body was like, can't do this anymore, that's when it was called to your attention. But so that's why I'm asking you if you are at the place yet, and you may not be, where other people in your experience, you're seeing them or experiencing them differently because now you're at a different frequency and you may not be at the same as they are or a similar one anymore. So all of a sudden, there may be some new insights about relationships or behaviors or roles or just things like that. And,
Well,
and I
here's
do agree.
I
You're
I
yeah.
guess here's what happens at this point, because I have learned a lot of stuff from you and a lot of stuff from the books that I have read, either from you or from my therapist through through the just trying to understand who I am and why I am here and all of those things. What's interesting is I feel like I'm right in that in between stage right now. I can hear somebody, hear the words that they say, understand the frequency that they're at, but sometimes have a challenging time removing myself and get swept up in it. So it's almost like I know enough now to recognize it, but still like, oh hey, I recognize this behavior that you're throwing at me. I don't really know how to deal with it right now, so I revert back to oftentimes my old self, which is the people pleaser self, which causes the stress and anxiety. So yeah, I mean, I know I seem to recognize it, but I don't quite know how to get to deal with it yet. Is that fair?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And this is the third time I'm attempting to say this. So I do agree with you about your anxiety level. I said minus the first weekend here, you're sleeping well and you're sleeping long. So I feel like that whole frequency has come down for a couple different reasons. Yes, there's communication between you and I that's different than what you've had before. But there's also, I believe, a different kind of trust, even though we haven't settled on or made any, long-term plans necessarily. I mean, we're living life, but we don't have, there's no, announcement, commitment, whatever, so, but yet there's a lack of, there's not a lack of, there's a
Wait,
trust, there's a different
JJ,
kind of trust.
is that you on your knee? JJ, just get up right now. Just get
Oh, that's cute. Very cute. Also, you are in a different environment now. Can we go back to the podcast?
yeah, sorry.
We are in a different environment, and so all the energies that you had relationships with and history with that reminded you of how you were are no longer a factor until you go back, because you're in a completely different new environment where you get to sort of be new and
Okay, so
you don't
let me
have it.
let me say this though, because this is really interesting that you just brought that up. Because when I am in Baltimore, which is where I am right now, you're right. I feel like I get pulled into this environment here. When I'm in California, I feel like, when I say to you, I want to come home, and you know where I mean when I say I want to come home, I want to come back to Los Angeles, because I really feel like as my new home, it is a place where I have now, there's a lot of unknown. There's a lot of, I don't know where my future is. I don't know where, I don't know everything about what's happening, but I can tell you, I feel my being feels at home in California. My brain is still working on, okay, well, wait, everything I know though is back on the East Coast. So how do I make this happen? So for me, I do it, and people don't understand that when I'm here. And I had a conversation with my first ex-wife, with my original wife, and she we got in an argument, and she's like, "What are you talking about? Everything you know is here in Baltimore." I said, "I don't like it here," and she got almost offended that I said I don't like it here, because she internalized that to mean I don't like the people that are here. And I can't argue with her. To a degree, that's probably right. It's not that I don't love my family, but everything that here represents is uncomfortable for me right now, and everything that is new and fresh is West Coast for me right now. And so I feel a deep pull to I'm concerned that they're thinking this is escape, that this is escape.
Okay, so let's say your family thinks that this trip to California, this moving to California, is an escape. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, it is an escape, but it's not a mistake. I think that's the difference between the two things. Is somebody says that something is an escape, is that a necessarily a bad thing? I think that if you want to try to make, and I've always been the kind of guy that makes bold moves. I don't want to make shocking moves. It's not what I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to shock people into reality. But I find as though a small little minimal change, like those kind of things, it's like it takes too long. Let's just fucking just do it. Just, okay, here's the bold change. I moved to California. Grow fucking up. Okay, this is not your life, this is my life. Why can't I be in control of the decisions that I make? Why am I constantly being put through, as I think many people are put through and fall prey to, the decisions that we make are the decisions that we think that other people would want us to make? I mean, that's bullshit. I just think we should. I say that now bravely on a podcast, but it's like when I get off the podcast, I'm like, JJ, did I make the right decision? It's like, come on, grow up, grow up.
Well, you're used to being a people pleaser. And one of the things that happens early on is that you're trained to check in with everybody else and how they feel. And you're not used to having people be angry with you. So this is a new thing. And not that they're angry at you for leaving, they are having emotions. But what is really great in terms of an opportunity here is to recognize that it's their emotions. And like you've said a couple times, no one has ever asked you, well, how are you feeling? What do you think is best for you? Everybody wants to tell you what they think is best for you because they think that you're crazy right now and that you're doing crazy things. And they're seeing it as an escape or this as a rebound. But, it is an escape, but why can't it be an escape from something where you felt trapped, something where you felt pressured?
So when do you get to take that bold move, like a bold move to the West Coast, and make that into a bold move that you were using as a part of all of the decisions that you make? It's like, you really want to shock people, be your own person. You really want, especially if you're somebody that was like me and more of the people pleaser mentality, that, my mentality was, I wonder how the decision that I'm going to be making is affecting the decisions that other people are making about the decisions that I am making. It's fucking exhausting. It's like, everybody just stop doing that. Just put yourself in a position to make your own choices, make your own decisions. And then you can't be wimpy about it. You have to have the ability not just to make that decision, but to stand where you are proudly saying, if I fucked up, it's on me and I'm okay. I'll take the responsibility for making decisions, even bad ones, as long as I am able to deal with my own consequences and not go running back with my tail between my legs and saying, I'm sorry, I made a bad decision. I really should have been a people pleaser. I'm like, that is done. It's over. It's just done. And I'm sorry that if people are going to get hurt in the process, but I'm not going to get hurt in the process because I need to be my own person. I need to make decisions for myself. And I really need to get rid of that people pleaser mentality. And although 53 years later in my life, it is certainly, it's something that needs to be done. It should have been done 30, 40, 50 years ago. But you know what? Today's the best day. If I didn't do it back then, today's the best day for me to do it right now.
Well, you're doing a good job. And for everybody who's listening, just remember that when people have a problem with what you're doing, it's twofold. One, they can have concern, and that's what they're going to say to mask their own stuff, is that I'm worried about you, I'm concerned about you. Well, here's the thing. If people aren't asking for your advice, it isn't your job to give them your opinion, because we can have opinions all day long about what other people do, but it just is a distraction and an addiction to dealing with our own stuff. If people would just deal with their own stuff and then trust that everyone else around them will deal with their own stuff the same, then we'd all be happier. There's this control aspect to the people pleasing that happens, and people think, well, other people are mad at me. And they'll use the word selfish. This is what I really love. They'll call you selfish for doing something for you. And what did I say to you a couple of weeks ago? You get to be selfish about your life.
Yeah.
And when it comes to being selfish towards other people, every single person asking for something different or wanting you to be where you used to be is completely because they want it for them, not for you. So it's hilarious, not for you. I'm not trying to make fun of your situation, but really, people will hide behind well, you're being selfish. well, I get to do that. It's my life. And why do you want me to come back? You want me to come back so you feel better. Now, isn't that a little selfish? Because you want my life decisions to be based on how you feel. It's crazy. And until people sort of get a perspective on that, it's harder to change. So, the bottom line is you have to check in with yourself. You have to make decisions that make you feel good. Obviously, when it comes to your moving or how you process things, and people will try to hold you back and throw guilt trips at you. And
well, here's what they do, though. They're trying to bring you back to really what you have trained them to be from the beginning. So it's not really their fault. It's your. So take responsibility for the fact that they're not actually doing it to you. You've done it to yourself, and they're just mirroring what you have given them permission to do for all of these years, whether you're a teenager or somebody that is in their 50s, or whether you're 80 years old and listening to your kids the same way. You've given everybody permission in your life to be that way. So you will get pushback. Just be prepared for it. I'm just telling you that right now. You are going to get pushback, and that is okay. Expect it. It's coming. Welcome to the pushback.
And try a new training program. So you did that for so long. You trained them how to behave like this. So now think, we're going to change up the training program. I would like a change, and here's how that's going to go. And, people don't like change. So they're going to have the pushback, but eventually they will, it's already started to happen for you, right? You got an apology already. And because you stuck up for yourself and said, this is what I'm doing, and end of story. And so it will slowly start to change. And hopefully you can just keep a positive attitude that everybody will quickly figure it out and move on. And if not, hey, welcome to life school.
I'm not going to let the apology fool me into a false sense of reality, though, because normally the apology, if one happens, and I appreciate the apology that came in, but the apology is preceded by, okay, now can we get back on board and you can listen to what I'm saying? Because that's about to be what happens next. You just stay tuned. So many great things. This is a story that is just unfolding before our podcast community eyes, and I love that it is, because I love that we can share it, because as well as I do, for me, the microphone is what? It's truth, right? So it's
therapy for you. You tell more truth when you're talking in this microphone than you do when you're text messaging or talking to people on the phone.
I do. I really do. And I will continue to use it as my therapy session. So stay tuned for the upcoming weeks and months and years that we are doing this podcast, because the truth is right here on the podcast. So anybody that's listening know that if you're getting text messages from me, those aren't real. This is real.
How does Doug really feel? Well, listen to the show and he'll tell you.
Just listen to him.
Yeah. So we're not, we have some things going on. I don't know that we'll be back here next week talking about relationships or not. We might be. So just stay tuned. There will be a Doug and JJ show. It might change just next week, but just keep in mind that we'll fill you in as things unfold. But we have a little personal things going on here.
Wow. That is a cliffhanger, if a cliffhanger ever existed. I'm excited to hear what's going to happen.
Well, it's your stuff. I don't know why you're acting as if you don't know what it is.
Oh, I was hoping to build suspense for you. You see, JJ, this is how you do it in the podcast land. You build suspense and then you bring it back. It's called a teaser. This is a teaser for the next episode. Women, men, and relationship community. This is all about what's going to happen next week. We're not telling you right now.
They heard that.
Oh, they heard that.
Okay, yeah. So just keep us in your prayers. Keep Doug in your prayers, or your positive thoughts, and we'll be back next week to update the drama, or not. And we'll be back. The whole point is we will be back. We will be talking about relationships. We want to include you in on the conversation. We want to hear what you're going through. We want you to know what we're going through, because I think so many people go through it. In fact, something I talked about at dinner last night that I definitely want to do a show on is the idea of divorce, and how I had such a judgment about it before, and how that's starting to change, not because I'm going through it, but because I'm watching relationships in a new way and people that have been together. But anyway, we're going to talk about that, because I want to unpack that. I want to unpack what's happened in the last 2 weeks for you and I with our current relationships that are starting to come apart, and how we focus on each other and what's going on in your life. So lots to talk about. Life is complicated, but we're doing a good job, I think, trying to share and work on it and use it as tools and find the find the gems of wisdom and enlightenment and inspiration in the midst of all of it, no matter what it looks like on the outside.
Oh, that sounds, it takes a situation that it could be fairly just like typical life and death circumstances. And it just definitely makes it even like more like impactful and suspenseful. It's like you can learn a lesson from the fuck ups in Doug's life. Just listen in to Women, Men, and Relationships. Lessons are coming for everybody right here.
And with that said, have a great week. We'll see you back here next week.